This is a 2012 Nissan Altima with some interesting wiper problems. Basically, they would come on by themselves whenever they felt like it. Not the world's most crazy problem, but once I dug into it, I found some interesting things out. So, in this video, we're going to look at a Pico capture, some service information that is very misleading. How that switch right there actually works versus what the manual tells you. And I've got a couple little videos in the shop showing the problem, showing a little hack that I did to prove out the problem, and ultimately where I found it. So stay tuned, and I will try to make this as short and sweet as possible. Thanks. This is a 2012 Altima. The wipers come on by themselves. I'm looking at the inputs. See, they just popped on. They will just come on randomly. I've got no input from the switch and no request from the IPDM. Now they're off. You can see there they're off. I just turned them to low, and I got a request to low, nothing. Request to high, nothing. Back to off. And while they're on by themselves, I can move the thing from high to low. Actually, it'll actually turn to high. Oh, there they stopped. And I am literally going... Everything's off. And let's just see. We got the little cute animals on the dash. Oh, there they go. So that's the problem I have. And right now I'm thinking I don't have any input problems. The IPDM is not requesting it, so I'm going to start snooping around out around the cowl and look for any damage. This car came from a body shop, and it had some significant front end damage, so Lord only knows what we'll find, but I'll keep you posted. Oh, there we go again. So here's the wiring diagram for the wiper system. As you saw in the video, this wiper system would turn on without any input from the combination switch. So basically everything was off, and the IPDM took it upon itself just to simply turn the wipers on. And it usually, when it turned them on itself, it would always turn them on low. So I did a couple of tests, and I'm testing at the IPDM. So pretty simple here. Under normal circumstances, you get some inputs, and the BCM through CAN wants the wipers to turn on. So the wiper relay gets power and ground from here, power from a fuse, and it cycles it on. So it takes the 30 amps that it gets from here, would normally run it through here and over, and depending on whether you want high or low as to what leg the power goes down. So low, it comes down through here, the wiper motor activates, and it goes to ground. Pretty simple. When this thing would activate by itself, I back probed it here, and sure enough, it was getting its voltage from here and going down through here and going to ground. The IPDM is acting solely on its own. I did some power and ground checks to the control unit and just make sure it was getting everything it needed to make wise decisions. This switch, I kind of overlooked it at first because I thought it just simply had to do with if you turned, let's say the wipers were halfway up the windshield and you turned it off. I thought it had something to do more with retaining the power to go ahead and park the wipers. It does not. If you look at the description, let me pull it up real quick. It's pin 16, front wiper auto stop. Okay, remember that, front wiper auto stop. So the front wiper in a stop position, you should have 0 volts. Any other position other than stop, it should have battery voltage. So it's getting 12 volts through the small resistor here off of the ignition relay, and it's an input to the IPDM. So I have 12 volts coming down, and if I'm in the stop position, it's going to drop to ground. So I would see the 0 in stop, and if it's other than stop, it would be over here and give me the 12 volts. Well, this wire checking at the IPDM has 12 volts on it all the time. Regardless, if the wipers are moving or they're stopped, it has 12 volts on it. So I'm knowing that's an issue, I'm expecting to either see 12 or 0. That's exactly what the description says. So what I did was I grounded this wire and moved it to 0. The it had no effect. The wiper system still had issues, still had a mind of its own. So I said, well, what I need to do is I need to go ahead and take the cowl off and just make sure that all the signals, obviously these powers and grounds are getting there because the wiper's working. But I wanted to verify the integrity of this wire from here to here. So I'm going to show you another little video of what I've done, and it fixed the car temporarily until I actually found the real problem and fixed the car. But you'll see in that video that this switch doesn't really do what I thought it would do. The video will have a Pico capture in it, and then I'll load the Pico capture, and we'll do some measurements on it, and I'll show you where I feel like a voltmeter would have been even more tricky to diagnose. So hang on, let me get the second little video. The input to the IPDM that the wiper motor is actually working looks like that. That's the blue trace. You can see the wipers moving, but the only way that input is there is this wire here, which is red. I have to jump it to the IPDM here. So as soon as I disconnect my jumper, you can see my signal flatlined, and my wiper motor is going to start going crazy because it doesn't know if it's moving or not. It's just a 12 volt signal that drops to ground. 12 volt comes out of here, and then it just grounds it at the motor as the motor moves. So if I were to check it here right now, I would have 12 volts. It's just that it's not getting from there to there. I've got a harness problem. So in the video, I was back probed. I believe I was back probed here. On the Pico capture, you'll see that'll be the blue trace, and all I did was really just run a jumper from here to here. The wire was cut. So here's the Pico capture. So as this wiper arm is moving, you can see we've got 12 volts here. So I'm applying power and ground to my motor. My motor's running, and as it's running, that switch is opening and closing as it's running. Now this was with the jumper wire, and I am back probed at the wiper motor. So it's not 12 volts or 0 volts. It's 0 volts when it's parked, but this switch tells the IPDM that this motor's working, not that it's 12 or 0. It is, because if it has a straight 12 or a straight 0, the system still doesn't work. That IPDM needs to see this to let it know that, hey, this wiper motor is in fact moving. So in the video you see where I unclip the jumper wire, which I've done it here. This is the capture from it. And the wiper motor stays running for a minute, and then once it goes away, now it's showing 0 here because I'm at the motor itself. It would be showing 12 volts at the IPDM. It's just where I'm back probed. And after a few minutes, a few seconds of it not seeing the signal, it kills it. And then if I would have let this keep going, it would have turned them back on. I don't know if it's some sort of a logic built into that IPDM. If this thing thinks it's moving or not parked, and it knows it hadn't put voltage to it, that it just intermittently just cycles it to try to fix itself. I'm not sure of the logic that's programmed into the IPDM. I just know, let me get the good file up here. Now this capture here is I've fixed it, and what I did was I just simply reached in and I turned the wipers off with the switch, and then turned them back on. And you can see it starts inputting immediately that it's turning, that the motor's moving. And I do believe if you were to use a voltmeter, I'm just going to put a cursor there and a cursor there, and we'll do a measurement, because we know our voltmeters, they average. We are on channel A. We're going to do a DC average, and we'll just go between the rulers and hit OK. So a voltmeter probably would have shown you somewhere, it wouldn't have shown you 0, and it wouldn't have shown you system voltage. It would have shown you less because it would have been averaging in this off time here. So it would have roughly been 10.5 volts, which I think would have been even more confusing to someone that was simply using a voltmeter on this. And I think it all starts with the service manual being confusing. They should have put a little screen to the side and had a little makeshift waveform showing this is what you should have when the system is operating. This is nor 0 nor 12 volts. It's a waveform. It said this system isn't that complicated, but if that IPDM does not see this very basic on and off, it spazzes out. It randomly turns itself on, randomly turns itself off. The wipers will stop in the middle of the windshield for 2 or 3 seconds and then take off again and then stop, and sometimes they'll stay off for 2 minutes. If you keep the key on, they'll start again and they'll wipe 4 or 5 times and they'll turn off. And it's because of this input. This input has a lot of weight to it, more than what I thought. And like I said, we got it figured out. I'm going to put one more little video up of where I actually found the problem, and where the wire was cut. This car had a windshield put in it, and I got a feeling that this problem happened during the windshield install. But I thought it was interesting. I like to bring stuff like this to the surface, although it's relatively simple. If you're going verbatim by the service manual and looking at that information, man, I could see somebody putting an IPDM in this car, because the IPDM had good powers to good grounds. It was acting on its own with no inputs at all, and it was just turning things on and off randomly. All fingers were pointing at the IPDM, but this little input here proved to be vital and verifying its operation. Definitely fixed the car. So hope you enjoyed. Like I said, I'm going to put up one last little video. It's just a quick little, hey, here's the problem. I ended up soldering it together, and all was happy in the end. So hope you enjoyed this little presentation here with the whacked out wipers. I definitely learned something, and hopefully it could keep myself and anyone who watches maybe from going down the rabbit hole and putting some unnecessary parts on this. Thanks again. Have a good one. Alright, found the red wire that's cut. I'm not sure how it happened, but right under here, get you focused in or not, but see the red wires cut right there. Trying to figure out how that happened. I don't know if the arm itself hit it or something, but get that put back together and do an after capture.